Good afternoon. Today, our teaching today is going to be on the biblical calendar, what we call the heavenly calendar. That's what we call it. This calendar is the calendar that is used in the Bible. Whenever you see days and months referenced in the Bible, it is not reference to what we use today, such as the months we use today, such as January, February, and March, and the rest of them. It is a reference to the calendar we'll be teaching you today. This is the true biblical calendar as ordained by the God of heaven. It is the calendar that was used by ancient Hebrews. It is still the calendar that modern Hebrews must use. Now, why is it important to know this calendar? You see, the worship of the God of the Hebrews, the worship of the God of the Bible is based on specific dates and months in the calendar. For instance, in the book of Leviticus chapter 23, the Most High told us to offer the feast of unleavened bread. And that feast of unleavened bread was to come a day after the Passover, in the first month. In the book of Exodus chapter 12, the Most High also talked about the same feast of Passover in the first month. In the book of Exodus chapter 34, we see the same thing. Now, if for those of us who grew up in the Gregorian calendar, if you grew up anything, from when the Gregorian calendar became being used worldwide, you will think that the first month is January. But that's not correct. That's not the first month. So if you want to observe the feast of Passover and on the 14th of January you go and begin to observe the feast, you're doing something wrong. You're actually observing a day you shouldn't observe because the Most High did not give you that day. That's why it's important to understand and to internalize this calendar. Another thing is the calendar also keeps us in tune with the heavenly proceedings. If you read the book of Jubilees chapter 6, it made it very clear that the angels in heaven also observes the feast of the Most High according to this same calendar. As it is done in heaven, so it should be done on the earth. So if you want to do what the angels in heaven are doing in worshiping the Most High, you have to observe this calendar. This is the calendar that was ordained by the Most High forever. It is not this calendar that we're currently using. Extremely confusing. For instance, some years we have leap year, some years we don't have leap year. We have daylight savings time that nobody knows where it came from. We don't know what we are saving in the daylight saving time. It's so confusing. Why do we have some months? Sometimes February is 28 days, sometimes it's 29. How confusing can that get? It's very confusing. Because we have computers in our modern day, we have our cell phones, we can easily check what the date is. If we live in a world where we don't have those things, nobody will be able to know what the calendar is. It's extremely confusing. The Most High did not make it that way. He gave us a very simple calendar. This calendar does not depend on your time zone, or whether you live in the Greenwich Meridian or not. This calendar just depends on the movement of the sun and the moon. If you can see the sun move, then you can observe this calendar. And today we'll be presenting this calendar in our presentation today. The outline for the presentation is, first of all, we'll give you this calendar using the scriptures. And then we'll tell you the proof, how to figure it out. And this presentation cannot come at a better time because we are about to start the new year. Today is the 6th of March. Very soon we are about to start the new year according to this Hebrew calendar. And when you see it that way, you can either prove us wrong or right by observing the proof we're going to give you of this calendar. You will have at least a month to do, more than a month to prove us right or wrong. And then we'll tell you how to figure out the calendar, how we figured it out from the scriptures. And then we'll also talk about the new moons. The reason I want to include new moons in this presentation, again, like I mentioned, when we want to put something out there, we usually go to the internet, and if someone has already put it out there, we don't bother. But from what we've seen, a lot of people, the new moons, which is a feast that we should observe according to Psalm 81 and according to a whole lot of prophets, the new moon is a feast that Hebrews observe, and we should observe it. However, from what we've seen out there, those who are trying to practice Hebrewism, the new moons they are observing is totally have no basis on the scriptures. It's so wrong. I don't even know where to start. So we're going to have a slide in this presentation to talk about the new moons and how it should be observed as well, and then the other feasts from this calendar. The important thing about this calendar is, once you know the first day of the year, you've known it. All you need to know is the first day of the year for 1 year. Once you know that first day of the year, every other years, you can easily just add 364 to them, and you know the next new year. Okay, brothers and sisters, we're going to provide you the heavenly calendar now. Why do we do this? Like I said, when we want to present an article of dogma or of the Hebrew faith, what we do is we go out there. Usually we go to YouTube or to the internet and research if that particular teaching has been presented. If it has been presented, we don't try to repeat it. We don't reinvent the wheel. Okay? Because we expect that the Most High will lead His people to wherever that material is. If it has not been presented, then we go ahead and do that. And all of our videos we have out there, actually, we try to pinpoint what people are doing wrongly and try to give scriptural basis for the way it should be done. Now, in terms of the calendar of the Most High, there are different versions of it out there. Almost everyone is coming up with some form of biblical calendar or the other. It's actually a good thing. It's good that people are beginning to realize that the calendar we have, that we currently use, the Gregorian calendar we currently use, is not the same as what the Bible said. And if we realize that, then it's also a good thing that people are trying to come back to what is in the scripture. However, we have to warn at this point, if you are trying to come back to the biblical calendar, do not make any assumptions. The scripture as we know it is complete. Everything was methodically written down. So any calendar you are following must have scriptural basis. If it does not have, then you're probably doing the wrong thing. So the calendar we'll be presenting to you is like I said, we've seen a whole lot of people do different things. In fact, there's one particular group on the internet that I saw, and what they were doing is they want to find out the first day of the year, which is good. When you find out the first day of the year, because on the last day of the year, according to the book of Enoch, the last day of the year is the day you have equal night and equal day. Since that is almost impossible in today's time, using today's watches to ascertain, so what they do is they go to the American Aeronautic Society. I think the American Navy has some kind of aeronautic society, and then they use Jerusalem time to try to calculate it. Yeah, right. Like the Americans actually are in tune with the Most High's calendar. That, in our opinion, is not correct and extremely unnecessary, because you can figure out the first and last day of the year, the new year of the year, from the scriptures. The scripture gives you a very simple method of figuring it out, and that's what we'll be presenting today. I've also seen some other people who what they do is a little bit complicated. They base their calendar on the war, or the wall of Jericho, that the war was 47 days, and they kind of take out one particular day as the new moon. In fact, most people I see usually have very wrong new moon days, and they kind of call it a null day and take it out of their calculations, which doesn't make any sense. There is no such thing as a null day. Every day was created equally by the Most High. The new moon falls on different dates, and the new moon, of course, is a feast. And we'll be showing that again in Scripture. There is nowhere in the Scripture that the Most High said the new moon it does not count for the 7 days. There is nowhere that is stated. So that is where people begin to make assumptions that are dangerous. If you are trying to figure out the Most High's calendar, stick to the Scriptures. Don't make assumptions that have no basis. Okay, to figure out the biblical calendar, we need 2 books. One, the book of Enoch, especially the book of Enoch. Then we also need to look at the book of Jubilees as well. We don't even need the book of Jubilees, but I will be quoting the book of Jubilees in this presentation because there's something important there about the calendar I want to point out. For the calendar, let us go to what the Enoch called the book of the courses of the heavenly luminaries. Like you all know, Enoch is the 7th from Adam. You can read in the book of Hebrews chapter 8 or in the book of Jude verse 14 where it talks about Enoch. Enoch is the 7th from the generation of Adam. Adam gave birth to Seth. Seth gave birth to Enoch. Enoch gave birth to Canaan. Canaan gave birth to Mahalalel. Mahalalel gave birth to Jared. Jared gave birth to Enoch. Enoch, of course, gave birth to Methuselah. Methuselah gave birth to Lamech, and Lamech gave birth to Noah. That is the generation of human beings on the planet. Okay? Now, Enoch was the very first to give a testimony. The scripture made it clear that Enoch was so righteous, the Most High took him straight to heaven. He didn't die. The Bible said that by faith, Enoch was transformed, that he should not see death. Now, the book of Enoch, he left in the book of Jude. Jude made it very clear that Enoch had a testimony, and that testimony was pleasing to the Most High. It's so sad now that Christians who are claiming to want to go to heaven don't even care, don't even know about the book of Enoch. I mean, if I want to be a good golfer, if you come to my house, you see pictures of Tiger Woods and other things every day, everywhere in my house. But Christians who want to go to heaven, how come they don't even look at the person who was taking body and soul to heaven? He didn't die. That is the person they should be looking up to. For me, as far as I'm concerned, I've read the book of Enoch over and over. The book of Enoch is much more important to me than the Bible, than the rest of the Bible. From Genesis to Revelation, it's not as important as the book of Enoch. Everything in those books are covered in the book of Enoch in one way or the other. So if we get to chapter 72 of the book of Enoch, and there are a number of translations of the book of Enoch, but the one I like using is that done by R.H. Charles. That is the one I like using. Now, let me give you a little background on the book of Enoch. You see, the book of Enoch was lost. It was only preserved from start to finish by the Ethiopians. If you read the book of Ezekiel, or the prophet that people call Ezekiel, in chapter 38, he said that my daughters from across the rivers of Ethiopia will bring a gift to me in the last days. That's what the scripture says. It was in the 1700s that the book of Enoch was discovered by the Western world. And somebody traveled to Ethiopia and saw the book. The book was written in ancient Ethiopian language. That book was preserved in ancient Ethiopian language. That language is no longer being spoken today. And so the book was transliterated into English by R.H. Charles. So it was covered in prophecy that my daughters from across the waters of Ethiopia will keep a gift for me in the end times. And the book of Enoch, the first paragraph in the book of Enoch states that this is the blessings of Enoch which he has for the righteous who will be living in the days of tribulation, when all the wicked and the evil are to be removed. He said he's made it very clear that his book is not for his generation, but for a remote one that will be living in the days of tribulation. So it doesn't get clearer than that, brothers and sisters. Okay, so if you get to chapter 72 of the book of Enoch, it's titled the Book of the Courses of the Heavenly Luminaries. In that book, the Enoch described the pattern of movement of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and how they complete the year, 364 days. Now look at how the chapter starts. It says, the book of the revolutions of the luminaries of heaven, the relation of each other according to their classes, according to their respective, according to their dominion, their powers and their seasons, and according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which the Uriah, the holy angel who was with me, who is their guide, showed me. And he showed me their laws exactly as they are, and how it is with regards to all the years of the world and unto eternity. That's how Enoch introduced this particular section that he called the courses of the luminaries. Now, if we follow it and go, he talks about the different months. In fact, Enoch chapter 72, from verse 8 to verse 32, he explained the 12 months, how the sun and the moon, how the sun moves in the 12 months of a year. For instance, in verse 8, he said, when the sun rises in heaven, he comes forth through the fourth portal, 30 mornings in successions. And that is the first month, 30 mornings. That's 30 days in the first month. In the second month, he explained again and said, the sun rises, and the second month can be seen in verse 11. He said, and the sun rises from that fourth portal and sets in the fourth, and returns to the fifth portal of the east, 30 mornings. So the second month is also 30 days. Now the third month, it says, Enoch chapter 72 verse 13, it says, and it returns to the east and enters into the sixth portal and rises. Let me explain. A portal, please go and read this section of the book of Enoch. A portal is just the openings in the east and west of the earth, of the heavens, where the sun, the moons, and all the luminaries come out and goes in from. So he said, on the third month, it returns to the east and enters into the sixth portal and rises and sets in the sixth portal, 1:30 morning, on account of its sign. So the third month is 31 days. And so Enoch kept on explaining the number of days we have for each of the months in this chapter 72 of his book. That is how you figure out the heavenly calendar. Now, brothers and sisters, this is what it is like. This is a pie chart we made of the heavenly calendar as given by Enoch. Some people call it the Enochian calendar. You have all the months. You have the first month has 30 days, like we just read. The second month, of course, has 30 days. The third month has 31 days. This third month, this one additional days is seen on every 3 months. Actually, for instance, you have the 6th month, 31 days, the 9th month, 31 days, and the 12th month, 31 days. So you have 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, and 30, 30, 31 days. Now, this extra 1 day in each of these 3 months is to mark the change of season. From here, you have the spring, then you have the summer, you have the autumn, and then you have the winter season. 1 day in between to mark the change of season. These extra 1 days, these 4 days that are extra, are called intercalary days. They are called intercalary days, and it is explained in the book of Enoch as well. The total number of days you have in a year is 364 on the dot. That is 52 weeks on the dot. If you look at the calendar we currently use, the Gregorian calendar that have 364 days and 365 and 366, it is not 52 weeks on the dot actually. If it's 52.2, depending on which year you are counting. That does not make sense. How do people in ancient olden days, how are they going to figure out 52.2 weeks? How are they going to figure that out? I mean, today we have our calculators, we can do it. How will a shepherd in the desert guiding his flocks figure out 52.2? It doesn't make any sense. There are no leap years in this calendar. It's 364 on the dot. So if you know the first day of the year, 364 days later, you're talking about another new year. And that is how simple the calendar of the Most High is. You don't need to begin to say, okay, fine, today they fought the Battle of Jericho, tomorrow they didn't fight. No. If you know the first day of the year, 30 days later is the second month, 30 days later is the third month, 31 days later is the fourth month, and that's how you calculate it. 364 days later, the year is finished. You start another year. It's a cyclical process. And all this can be estimated from the movement of the sun, as explained in the book of Enoch. We can figure it out also sometimes. We can figure it out from the movement of the moon, because the sun and the moon, according to the book of Enoch, have some kind of agreement. They move in tandem forever. But the calendar is based on the sun. I've seen people who say that the calendar of the Most High is a lunisolar calendar. Lunisolar calendar, which means that it's based on the sun and the moon. No, that's not correct. That is totally correct. In fact, the book of that is because of that we want to include the book of Jubilee in this presentation. Because if you read Jubilee chapter 6, let me read Jubilee chapter 6 for you here. The book of Jubilee chapter 6, and let's go down to verse 35. It's the angel says, "For I know, and from now on will I declare to you, and it is not of my own devising, for the book lies written in the presence of me, and on the heavenly tablets. The divisions of the days is ordained, or they forget the feast of the covenant, and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon, and how it disturbs the season, and come in from year to year 10 days too soon." The moon, the year of the moon is about 354 days, 10 days short. So if you base your counting on the moon, you're going to get it wrong. So when people say that the calendar of the Most High is a lunisolar calendar, that's not correct. The calendar of the Most High is a solar calendar. It is based on the sun. Okay, so we using the book of Enoch from chapter 72, from verse 8 to 32, you will see the number of days in each month in a 12-month calendar. That is the calendar of the Most High. The question becomes, how do we know which day is which? Enoch made it very clear, and let me explain that here. Okay, in Enoch chapter 72 on verse 32, Enoch explains the last day of the year as the year that has equal night and day. Look at what he said. He said, on that day, I'm reading Enoch chapter 72 verse 32. He says, on that day, the night decreases and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts, and the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly as to its days, 364. The night is equal to the day, and the year is complete, 364. So if you know the last day of the year, the day, the night, and day are equal, you have known the calendar. That's all. That's all you need to do. The next day is New Year. 364 days later, it's another New Year. And that's how, brothers and sisters, you break it down. So how do we know the New Year? And this is where people make errors. Like I said, there are people I saw using the American Navy aeronautic something. I don't really know what they were using, but Well, I don't know how accurate that is, but I don't want to believe that anything from American Navy to the public is as accurate as it should be. However, you don't need to do that. All you need to do is look at the scriptures. The book of Enoch made it very clear on how to know the day, the new year, or the last day of the year. Let me show you that, brothers and sisters. This is how to confirm the biblical calendar. Take a look at Enoch chapter 73, verse 4. In chapter 73, Enoch talks about the movement of the moon. Chapter 72, it talks about the moon and the sun. But now it talks about the movement of the moon. Now, chapter 73, verse 4, it says, "And thus she rises, and her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning. And on that day she becomes visible, and constitutes for you the first phase of the moon on the 30th day, together with the sun in the portal where the sun rises." Selah. Brothers and sisters, that is how you know the 30th day. Any day you assume to be the new year, 30 days later, the moon must rise on that day. If the moon does not rise on the 30th day, then you are counting the wrong day for the new year, or for the last day of the year. Let me explain this better, because it's important that you understand it. For example, if you go to the American Aeronautic Society and they tell you that February 1, I'm sorry, January 1 is the new year, is the day you have equal night and day. That means that day is the last day of the year. The next day, which is January 2nd, should be the first day of the year, the next year. 30 days later, which is January 31st, the moon must come out wherever you are. The first moon must come out. If the moon does not come out, then you're counting the wrong time. So, brothers and sisters, if anybody has given you a calendar, find out the first year, the first month. And if the moon does not show up on the 30th of that first month, the calendar is wrong. It's a very simple process. In fact, brothers and sisters, this is how we figured out the calendar of the Most High. We read the book of Enoch, and when we saw that, I went home, I discussed with the elders, the villagers, those who keep the Bibical calendar, and they told us that this moon, the moon that is going to come out, will be the first moon of the year. Right? They told us that this was the first moon of the year. We did the estimation. The day the moon showed up, 30 days before, was the new year. As we back calculated. When they told us that this moon is going to be the first moon of the year, the moon usually comes out by March, in the month of March. They said that moon is going to be the first moon of the year. The elders in our village, in the Igbo villages, told us this. These were not Christians. They never read the Bible, but they have been keeping this calendar for generations, and they keep it by the moon. And they told us, look, this moon that's coming out is going to be the first moon of the year. So using the scriptures, we just counted 30 days. The day the moon came out, we counted 30 days prior, and that was the new year, and it rhymed perfectly. And guess what, brothers and sisters? When we counted 30 days prior, after that moon showed up, that 30 days prior, when we counted it, it fell on a Sunday. Remember, Sunday is the first day of the week. It's the first day created. So the first day of the year must be a Sunday as well. This is how you prove whether you're using the right calendar or not. Some people, when I see what they do, if you follow it, the first day of the year may come to on Wednesday, which doesn't make any sense. The first day of the year should be the first day of the week, and that is a Sunday. And using the Bibical calendar, we estimated the biblical calendar to be on that day. So, brothers and sisters, that's how you know the validity of the calendar you're using. Whatever calendar if you know the first moon of the year, the first moon of the year, try to monitor the day it comes out, the first day it comes out. And 30 days prior, that should be the new year. Because the moon will show up 30. Look, if you look at your watch and you're looking at your time and trying to figure out equal night and day, you're going to miss it. You're not going to get it. Because sometimes it's difficult to know when the sun rose and when the sun sets. And depending on where you are, you're going to miss it. And sometimes, for those who do not know, even the satellites don't even get it right because of reflections from the sun on the planet. So even the satellites don't even get it right. So the scripture made it very clear here on how to get it right. The moon comes out on the 30th morning. So whichever day you use, if the moon does not show up on the 30th morning, that day is wrong. So if you want to know the calendar of the Most High, you know when the first moon will come out. And the first moon usually comes out, and by the ending of March, you wait for the moon to show up. When you see the moon comes out on that week, you count 30 days prior and you've gotten your new year. And once you've gotten it, you've gotten it. And from there, you can estimate the next month, the upper month, all the 12 months until 364 days is complete, and you can start cycling. And you will see the 30th day of the following year the moon must come out, and it must fall. Believe me, brothers and sisters, you can verify this for yourself. It must fall on a Sunday. It doesn't matter where you live. We've done this and we've seen that it falls on a Sunday.